Thank you, Alex, for keeping my seat warm. But now I'm back, and it's time for some real education. In 1500, the German Renaissance artist Albrecht Dürer painted his portrait just before his 29th birthday. It was to be the last of 3 self-portraits. Art historians consider it to be one of the most personal, iconic, and complex self-portraits in all of Renaissance painting. The self-portrait is most remarkable because of its resemblance to many earlier representations of Christ. Art historians note the similarities with the conventions of religious painting, including its symmetry, dark tones, and the manner in which the artist directly confronts the viewer and raises his hands to the middle of his chest as if in the act of blessing.
Yeah, this is one of the most striking paintings of Renaissance culture and actually world art. Up until this point, there had never been a portrait, a self-portrait, painted this way. And I think in many ways, what Dürer did here was going to bring self-portraiture from artists much more in vogue than it ever had been. Throughout the Middle Ages, you had situations where some of the great painters, Giotto, Masaccio, they would paint themselves into their own pictures, but usually as a very small spectator in the back, peering around a window or looking around a doorway. But this is full-blown, for lack of a better word, artistic narcissism. Take a look at the picture. It really is an arresting image. I mean, there's something almost a cult about this. You look at you get this great look at the artist Dürer at the height of his powers. He is broad-shouldered. He is clearly a physical specimen. And you look at that hair. They didn't have curling irons back. Well, they kind of did, but I'm pretty sure Albrecht Dürer didn't need them. But most arresting about this painting is 2 things. It's the look on his face, the way his eyes bore into your consciousness. This effect is created in part by the genius approach of having no background. There's nothing behind him. It's as if he floats in space, which gives him an almost transcendental image, or a symbolically transcendental self of presence. Those who have said that this picture reminds them of a whole class of paintings and representations of Jesus Christ, I think that's right. You got that kind of ethereal gravity. If you look at it again, look at those fingers. Those are the fingers of an artist, right? They're long, they're dexterous, they are powerful. But you think about what they're doing there. I mean, it's almost as if he's turned Christ's blessing toward himself. The raised fingers of the Christ in blessing of the people out there, outside the frame of many of those pictures, seems to be placed back on himself. There is a remarkable assertion of the presence of the artist. Think about what would happen in a couple hundred years. This is still the age and the era where artists were craftsmen. They were part of guilds. They weren't necessarily considered part of the intellectual elite. They were not necessarily college-educated people. They were craftsmen and tradesmen. They were seen as. But one last look at that picture. What he's telling you is, I am no craftsman. I am the artist. In a couple hundred years, you would get that image of the highly sexualized, virile artist living in his garret in poverty, a very dangerous figure. This may be the first image in Western culture of what would happen a couple centuries later. And before we go, take a quick look at this picture. We did this picture a couple months ago on the Dr. Duke Show, and all of our instant classic art pieces, our segments, are archived on our FreedomProject.com site, so you can see all of them. This is Salvator Mundi, allegedly by Leonardo da Vinci, but we can't be quite sure of that. And if you think about the parallels between this picture, look at that, look at the fingers, look at the hair, look at the gaze of the Christ, which in this case is serenely probing. Go back to the picture once before, and you can see this. It's interesting to speculate. Maybe that picture, you go back to Salvator Mundi, maybe it wasn't Da Vinci, and maybe it happened a little bit later than we think, and maybe, just maybe, could Dürer have had something to do with it? No way of answering that here and now, but an interesting question nonetheless.